to LSO St Luke's and this Friday lunchtime concert. Today I'm joined by three players from the London Symphony Orchestra, Will, Julia and Laure. And our first piece is from British composer Sally Beamish. She sent us a short film to explain all about her piece. Let's watch it now.
Hello, I'm Sally Beamish. I'm a composer and viola player living in Brighton. This has been a really challenging time for musicians and for anyone in the arts, but it is amazing the creative ways that have been found to keep the arts alive. And an example of that is this series by the LSO, this Lunchtime concert series. And I'm absolutely delighted that the first movement of my string trio, The King's Alchemist, is going to be played. I lived for 30 years in Scotland, quite near Stirling Castle, and I was researching work on a piece about the Battle of Flodden, and visited the castle. And this was the home of James IV, who led the Scottish army to the disastrous defeat at Flodden. But he kept a really colourful court. He was a young king. He was fascinated by the arts. And he also employed an alchemist called John Damien, who was a musician and inventor, but his main task was to create gold from base metal. And you can still see his shopping lists, which were given to the king, where he ordered things like aqua vitae, which was whiskey, which apparently he needed, and also feathers, because one of his projects was to fly to France from the walls of the castle, which he did attempt, but ended up in the midden, in the rubbish below the walls, breaking his leg. And he blamed this on the fact that he'd been given hen's feathers rather than eagle's feathers. Anyway, for this string trio, which is called The King's Alchemist, and it's about John Damien, I used a theme called L'Homme Armé, which was also used by Robert Carver, who was the court composer for James IV. It's a theme that's been used over the centuries by many, many composers. And this first movement is a very simple statement of the theme, almost like seeing the castle emerging from the mist.
evocative piece. I really hope that one day we can hear the rest of that whole work. It's called The King's Alchemist, and thank you to Sally Beamish. The rest of our concert features the music of Beethoven, who is, of course, celebrating his 250th anniversary this year. So we're going to explore his third string trio, which was written during a really interesting time for him. He had just moved to Vienna, hoping to follow in the footsteps of his idol Mozart, who had recently sadly died. And so Beethoven took lessons from who he considered to be the next best thing, which was Haydn. And sadly, the two of them didn't get on as well as one would have hoped. Now, it was the way of the world at this time that young composers wishing to establish themselves would write string quartets. But Beethoven wasn't quite ready for that challenge yet, probably because he so thought greatly of Mozart and Haydn's recent string quartets. So instead, he turned his attention to the string trio, and he managed to completely revolutionize the form. This one, his third, is in C minor, which is his favorite key, and that tells us that it's going to be dark, dramatic, and full of contrasts. So it's got 4 movements in total. We're going to hear the first 2 back to back. We start with a fast movement and then a slow one. Thank So this is the point in our concert where we take a pause and we have time to answer any of your questions. So if you have a question for us, please use the chat box, or you can, I think, ask us questions via Twitter. Now, one has popped up on the screen, but before that, I've got a question of my own. Am I allowed to ask a question of my own? In the Sally Beamish piece, you were making very ghostly, unusual sounds. Can you just tell us how you made those sounds?
Oh, okay. These sounds are technically called harmonics. And instead of pressing our fingers onto the string, which actually normally creates a normal note, a normal pitch, we hover above the string, so just barely touching the surface, and it creates a harmonic, this kind of whispery sound that you're hearing.
Pretty much the whole piece?
Yeah, it's pretty much all consistently harmonics, in the piece. Yeah, it's quite effective, actually.
It's incredibly effective, but does it make it very difficult?
It's quite nerve-wracking, especially when it's really quiet, a little bit of bow shakes going on.
And the first piece in the concert as well.
Yeah. So,
well, it was very, very good.
Yeah.
So discussion on chat on acoustic and how the sound of 3 instruments is so full. So how is LSO St Luke's to perform in the trio? So how is this space for a trio? I think that's what we're being asked.
Do you want to say that, or me? How is the space for a trio?
Yeah.
It's nice. It's quite difficult. Funny enough, because we are distanced because of the current measures, it's not so easy to hear each other at the moment. But the room, I think, actually maybe out there sounds quite, full volume and quite a round sound. Here it's a bit of a bath, but I think it's quite nice though overall. Not to dig too much on the Luke's.
It sounds lovely in here, I have to say. For those of you watching who've never been, this is a huge space. It was a church. Yeah. It is enormous, and you do fill it. I don't know how you managed to, but you do fill the space.
It feels quite lonely, but I think actually it sounds quite nice, yeah.
Okay, so Yash asks, who chooses the pieces for your concerts? Do the musicians choose the music pieces they want to perform? For these concerts, the quick answer to that is yes, they do. So how did you choose today's repertoire?
Well, hi, I'm Julia. Rebecca got in touch a few months ago to ask if I might have an idea for a concert, and thought maybe a string trio would be nice. So we had a little think. There was, we wanted to find something in line with the theme, isn't that right? And so we chose this wonderful first movement from Sally Beamish's piece as the starter for the concert. And then it was a case of just picking one of the beautiful pieces from the repertoire. And this Beethoven seemed like a great pick.
I think it's gorgeous. The way these concerts work is we have Rebecca, who we keep mentioning, who's over there, who's in charge of the concerts, and we have an overall theme for each term, so 3 terms in the year, and then pretty much then it's sort of kind of negotiation between players and Rebecca and what we can do with rights and things like that. But they're very nice because it means anybody in the orchestra can come and say, I want to play that, and we try and accommodate them. Whereas the orchestral concerts, that's a totally different thing. Quite contrasting pieces. Is it easy to switch between playing style?
Yeah, for today, actually, I think starting with Sally Beamish was a very good start because it kind of creates an atmosphere in the hall. And it just, as Will was saying, it's quite nerve-wracking to start with just pianissimo or harmonics. But through the piece, it's kind of a good, I just felt like I could really get into the sound, even though it's really piano. It was a really good way to start, I think. And after that, I actually really enjoyed switching directly to Beethoven, even though it's quite unusual. I quite liked it.
And now it's Beethoven all the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, we've got people from Hungary. This is Attila, hope I've said your name right. How old, don't worry, are your instruments? Should we go around?
Embarrassingly enough, my excuse is I've only been playing on this violin a week and a half. It's actually owned by the LSO, and it's sort of going around the section at the moment, sort of up for grabs, basically. And I don't know how old it is. Give me a sec.
Should I start?
Yes, maybe.
So my cello is a French cello from 1856, I think. I have owned it for the last 10 years. I'm very happy with it.
Wow, 1856. And what about the viola?
This is my own viola. It's a funny old thing. It's from, the front part is from the 1660s, and the back is from something closer to the late 1670s. I think that's the idea. It's Milanese, and yeah, that's it really.
This whole time, I don't know if you've been able to see this on screen, but the whole time they've been talking, Will has been desperately trying to see inside his violin to tell us.
I have a date. It says 1772. It's an Eberle.
And I asked this last week, does it actually say inside, like the maker writes inside?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Normally, yeah, the maker's always inscribed in the instrument. And I think normally the old violins, the old instruments are, yeah.
And are you going to, because it's going around the section and people are trying it out, are you happy with it? Or
yeah, it's much nicer than my own, which is I've had since I was about 13, so this is a bit of an upgrade. But yeah, a few other people from the section need to try it out, but hopefully they won't like it, so I can keep it.
Fingers crossed. Martin Newman from Wales says, do you ever perform pieces from amateur composers? The quick answer to that is yes. We have a scheme actually for beginning composers becoming professionals, the name of which I can't remember because it changes. Rebecca? Sound Hub, there you go. So we definitely perform composers at the beginning of their career, but I'm sure you've all played pieces by amateur or student composers at some point.
Yeah, in workshops and stuff.
Yeah, workshops and things like that. And we have a huge outreach program in schools where we meet composers as young as 6. Is playing chamber music helpful to being an orchestral musician?
Yeah.
I think it all is.
Yeah.
I think the quick answer is yes. I mean, the more variety you can have in your career and your playing life, the better your playing everywhere will be. You sit in orchestra and it sharpens certain skills and you learn a huge amount from it. You sit in a string quartet or trio or a quintet or even a small chamber orchestra and you have to use slightly different skills each time. And it awakens your awareness to other things again. And then every so often when you're feeling a bit brave, you do something solo or a duo recital and, that takes a slightly different set of skills again. And it's a very different type of stamina, I think, from one to the other, the different parts of the brain you use and the type of repertoire you approach, and it's all incredibly helpful.
Great. How do you decide, I think that's a who, but there's a little block over my screen. How do you decide who to invite to form your trio? Oh, now careful. Because, of course, there's, 50 string players in the LSO, so how did you decide?
Oh, that's really easy.
Yeah.
Will is my brother-in-law, and Laura is his girlfriend. And so when we were in the relaxed part of the COVID restrictions, we were all part of the one bubble, really, because of where we were living at the time. And it seemed like a lovely opportunity to play a trio. So we thought we would.
Tends to be people choose their friends and the people that they sit with. But the LSO is an incredibly friendly orchestra. So we have a constantly changing sort of, if we have a string quartet, we have often completely different faces each time. Laure Le Dantec asks, says, amazing trio. I think we might know that person. Are you going to play soon together again?
You want to take that one?
I hope so. We'll see.
There you go. Yes, you obviously know that person, right?
Obviously, it's my sister.
Ah. Well, she thinks you're great, so that's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. And I guess this is going to be the last question, which is the classic. What did you do during lockdown?
To be honest, not a huge amount. We were myself and Laure were living in a smallish flat, long story short. So we couldn't really play our instruments a huge amount. Because we were living in such close quarters. But we did the kind of usual thing, tried to have a routine every day, do exercise, try and go for a walk. I really, really massively missed playing in the orchestra. And it's a cliche, but it's really, really nice to be back. But yeah, it was tough for sure. And it's not really, we're so lucky that we're able to work, so lucky, because I have many freelance friends who are not so lucky at the moment. So.
And what did you do, Julia, during the lockdown?
I have a small family. I have a little 2-year-old, and with my husband, who's also in the orchestra, we just did the same. We tried to find a routine. It's not very difficult to find with a little one. So we just spent time outdoors when we could, practiced a little when we could. Oh, you know, all the usual. Try to go for a run, get some alone time as well. I don't know if you guys found it, but that lack of individual time as well was a tricky one to deal with at times. And like you said, just get ready to come back to work in whatever shape or form that took, and we're incredibly lucky. And far from being normal just yet, but it's great to be playing.
Well said. Thanks for your questions. So we're taking a break from these concerts now, but we will be back in February, I think on the 12th. The plan is that the concerts will be streamed, and the fingers crossed plan is that there will be an audience. But of course, anything could change. So if you want details on those concerts that are coming up in February, then keep an eye on all of our social media platforms and our website as well. There is a concert coming up that is definite and you can watch on the 13th of December at, I think it's 3 in the afternoon, is the LSO's Christmas concert. And there's lots of opportunities within that concert for you to get really merry, sing along and enjoy the festivities. So that's on the 13th of December. And the secret thing about that is it was filmed. You were probably all in the Christmas concert. Wasn't that filmed in like October or something like that? Yeah, shouldn't have said that. So they were feeling really Christmassy when they filmed it. Weren't you? Yes, you were. Okay. So we're going to end with the final 2 movements of the Beethoven. Really interesting fact about this piece is Beethoven was 28 or thereabouts when he wrote this piece, and he said it was his greatest work so far. Of course, a lot of greater and equally great pieces came after that. And he did switch to string quartets. And when he made the leap into the world of string quartet, of course, he wrote some of the greatest string quartets the world has ever known. So we finish with the final 2 movements. We have a Scherzer, which is like a witty dance, and then a finale, which brings back all the energy and passion that we heard in the first movement.